Hey everybody, welcome to our video. We're going to start talking a little bit about our CS-10 machine. We have a very recent and new update to that piece of equipment. One question you might say is, if you have a good piece of equipment that you've sold for the last 15, 18 years and decide to upgrade it, why would you do that? I mean, there's a lot of R&D time and different things like that we put in to make this upgrade. Well, one, we listen to you, the customer. And the guys that have this equipment out and use it had a few things that they've questioned over the years about the overall machine itself. So it's been very successful. It's a very good piece of equipment. We thought, hey, what are some things that we could do to make this into an elite piece of equipment instead of just basic in its production? Because one of the things is when we first had this come out, and this was even with the previous owners to the company than us, was portable, easy to use, lightweight, and something that was really going to be designed mostly for the barber beauty industry where the volume is lower on clipper blade sharpening. And again, carrying them in and out of shops, things like that. And what we found is people started using them for multiple different industries and for higher volume. And we hadn't really planned on that. So as we've learned that that's part of how they're being used, we wanted to accommodate with the quality of the piece of equipment. So if we look at our kind of original design that we had here, you can see that we have an on-off switch to turn it on and off, obviously. Pretty classic. And then it had a lid that was installed, and that was so that when you took this and picked it up and carried it by the carry handle, this would help keep some of the dirt and dust and things inside and kept it a little more clean as they came in and out of the shop. The bad part about that is that if you wanted to have any dust control, this lid had to come off and out of the way in order to use it. I'm just going to set the lid out of the way. And if you notice, I've already cannibalized this. It used to have legs and magnets that would then stand it in the machine and keep all that from falling out when you're carrying it. So here we are. We've got our basic plate and everything, but it's pretty exposed. We had basic edges on the sheet metal. Still has the handbrake inside, and overall use was very, very functional, but simple. One of the complaints that we had over the years was that the motor itself really didn't hold up to time. And part of that is, if I'll take our plate out of the way, and we'll look at that just a little bit. The motor itself, when I tip it up here, you can see the bottom was pretty open and exposed to the room. This is a very basic fan motor that we had put in these, one for cost, and just to keep the whole unit as affordable as possible. But that also pulled grit and things through it, because it does have a fan that's cooling it. And the fan just never really cooled it as well as we would like to. And then from the top side, being we needed air circulation, we left venting in the top. So again, we were dropping grit in, and that of course a lot of times affected the bearings and other issues along with the overall heat of that motor. And so in certain environments, we would even get to where the motor would overheat and shut down, and guys would have to wait for it to cool in order to go back to work. So all those things to said, we wanted to go ahead and create something that was a little more user-friendly, a much, much better quality overall machine. So when we went to the new model, some of the things that we did, we still have our on-off switch, and it's a lighted switch so you can tell that you have power. And then we also added a controller, and part of that is that we went to a DC motor. Instead of the AC motor that again was kind of drawing a few more amps along with the idea that it had a lot of heat, we went to a DC motor that's self-contained, sealed bearings, and really didn't need any airflow to it anymore. And that helped us contain a lot of those issues we were having before. The DC motor that we have picked, it's a 90 volt DC motor for high torque, high strength to it. And we're running really only at 2 amps. So for those that are going mobile or going into any location, you're not going to have any issue finding enough power to run this piece of equipment. The other thing is, being we're in a 90 volt setup, along with then an internal controller for that to convert from your 110 or 230 volt plugs. So this is something we can even sell internationally without any conversions. then that controller itself had the variable speed built into it. So we added that, gives us a little more versatility in how we're going to sharpen and some of the different things that we are going to do. We added, instead of that lift out lid that was there just to kind of use when you're carrying it, we added a full hinged dust cover. So now we can close that down, and it's going to help contain a lot of the dust from blowing up in the air and floating everywhere in the room, and we can still sharpen on the open side, and again, just to help control that. We still have the manual brake down inside the inside here that you push up against the side of the wheel. There is an option that you can order. It's an extra $100, but with that we can create an electronic brake so that when you turn your switch off, the wheel will stop instantly. For some of you that have used these in the past, being it's a very small surface, we do charge the plate with fresh grit more often than we would on our bigger equipment, just because there's less surface area. So we're going to use up that grit faster. And so if we go up to maybe 6 blade sets at a time, you're going to have to stop this more often. And whether we do the electronic brake option or we use the hand manual brake, which comes with the machine, it's very easy to get this wheel stopped, cleaned, recharged, and then back to sharpening again. But again, that's one of the things that we do with all our equipment is we have to recharge and keep that grit fresh so that we're sharpening efficiently. Other than that, we put a lip rubber kind of protection on the top of the wheel, or I'm sorry, of the cabinet, and there's a couple things that does. One, again, you don't have that more raw edge of the machine that you're rubbing your hands against and things, so it's a little more user-friendly that way. Secondly, that little bit of a lip that it creates holds even more of that dirt and grit inside the machine, so less is floating out into the room. So if you are portable and coming into someone's workspace where you're going to do your work, it's easier to keep clean. Other than that, we're really excited about this new release. If you wanted to find this and be able to get one, you could go to our YouTube channel and see some of the different content we have there. We have another video that's going to talk about how we assemble and how we put this together. If you go to YouTube and then search The Edge Pro, 3 separate words, you'll find our logo with our name, and then you're going to go to videos and see what all of the content we have there. Secondly, of course, would be our website, and we'll probably have links on here to get to that. And on the website, there's a section on sharpening equipment and or Nebraska blades, and you will see these listed there with some different options. One option would be is that you buy this entire machine, the wheel, and a starter kit. But those out there that already have equipment and they don't need the tools, they don't need that startup kit, you can also order it with just the machine and wheel. Let's say you're the one that has the older machine and you're like, you know what, it's time to upgrade that box and that power system. Just order the machine and then your wheel will still fit. Nothing changed that way. Again, just an overall easy thing to work with. But if you're on the website, look for it there. Also, one easy thing you could do is either email us at our shop, which is service@theedgepro.com, or you can call in to the shop at 515-963-1990 or toll free 866-963-1990. Again, we thank you for listening and checking out why we took the effort and time. Again, we've talked about this basically for the full 7 years that we've owned the company. At the same time, just in the last 2 years is when we really started putting effort into the redesign and development. And then we were forced, because the company that made the motors that we used all these years discontinued that style of motor. We went ahead and looked and researched to find a comparable replacement. That particular company, a second one that we found, also was discontinuing, and we bought their whole stock out so that we could continue making them until they ran out. So for us, it was kind of necessary to make the update. It's going to make it very difficult to repair or update those old machines. Now, let's say you did have that old machine and you're like, well, I don't really feel like I need to invest in all this. We can put a price together for you to replace the motor, controller, and circuitry inside. There is, sorry, turned around here, an adapter plate that we've made so that that can be installed in place of the original motor, and then mount the current motor on in with the electronics. We'd have to drill a housing hole for the controller so we can have that variable speed. And then again, if you wanted the electronic brake, that's a second hole that we'd have to put in. Other than that, it's a fairly easy conversion, but it's going to cost quite a bit just because what you're buying is all the expensive parts. You know, the motor, the controller, and the wire harness. But again, if that's an option that you'd like to look into, we're going to have a kit available for it. Again, thank you for listening and being a part of our experience.